Today, we're going to be covering Deadpool versus Punisher. Why? Because you guys seem to like it when Deadpool fights other individuals, and Deadpool versus Punisher just seems like a really awesome story. And trust me, I've read it. It is really good. If you're wondering where you're at, that is the complete story series. This is where we take your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues, and we break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then, we read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Now, let's get on with the show. After the hustle and bustle of crime throughout the day, there's a club where the criminals can go and they give up their weapons and enjoy some big superhero fights. Club Versus is the place where these people can meet on neutral ground, enjoy drinks, and make bets on who they think the winners of the fights would be. At times, you would almost feel bad for them for what's about to happen. That is, unless you're the Punisher, Frank Castle, posing as the bouncer and using all of those collected weapons to shoot everyone down. Because when Frank starts to feel bad, he just shoots until those feelings go away. As the club manager, Radovan, hides behind the bar, he can hear Frank telling those who are still alive, "Thanks for the guns," and then a single shot. After a few moments of silence, Radovan turns to look out and he feels Frank grab him by the collar of his jacket, and then a gun gets shoved into his mouth. Radovan tries to talk, but Frank tells him, "I kinda can't hear you. You might want to write down whatever you're trying to say." Radovan quickly grabs the pad and pen and scribbles, "I can give you the bank." The next day, in an estate along the Hudson River, Simon Banks flips through Deadpool Wade Wilson's pictures of his last adventure with the Dawn of the Dead, and Simon says another job well done. Deadpool tells him, "No thanks needed. Just give me my booze and money, please." Shortly afterwards, Simon's son Hudson runs in wearing a Deadpool mask and popping guns, shouting, "Bang, bang, I'm Uncle Wade!" As the pop guns go off hitting Wade, he shouts, "Ugh, kid bullets are the only thing that I can't come back from. What are the odds?" As they go on, Frank silently moves through the home and into Simon's personal office. The information that Frank is looking for is on Simon's clients and their trail of money. Simon is a big-time money launderer for some of the biggest criminal organizations across the 5 continents, so taking out the clients and then Simon would be ideal. However, as Frank works at the computer, Hudson walks in asking, "Who are you?" The house nanny runs in after Hudson, telling him that he's supposed to stay out of here, and then she sees Frank. Frank reaches for his gun, and then the nanny quickly kicks it out of his hand and moves into punch. Frank thinks based on her style, she's most likely ex-Israeli and a pretty good fighter. As Frank slams her head into the desk, he thinks, relatively speaking, a good fighter. As the alarms go off, the other guards shout that the Punisher is here. And then Deadpool says, "Frank's here? Does he want any dip?" Simon shouts for Deadpool to do something, so Deadpool tells him, "You have your guards, let them handle it." And after hearing the sound of the last of the guards' bodies hit the ground, Wade tells him, "Fine, I'll go help." Deadpool jumps out of the window, firing at Frank, and after getting a few hits in, Frank returns fire, hitting Deadpool. While the two shoot back and forth, Simon's wife, Marina, grabs their son Hudson and runs towards the boat on the water. After hitting Frank in the wrist, Deadpool says, "Man, you just ruined a perfectly good Sunday." And over at the boat, as Marina turns the key, an explosion goes off, ripping the boat to pieces. As the night begins to fall, Frank carries his bloodied and bandaged body into his safe house, the one that appears to have been burglarized. Frank thinks, who would be stupid enough? And then Deadpool appears, telling him, "Man, the irony of this!" Frank asks him how, and so Deadpool holds out a bullet, stating that we both buy a lot of bullets, and this smart bullet comes with optical sensors. Not many people buy these. So, Frank then asks, "What about my defenses?" And Wade laughs, "Haha, I got past them by triggering them. Duh. Joys of having a healing factor." Deadpool then goes on to tell him, "That kid you killed? I happen to love that kid. Not that you of all people would care." Frank says, "That's where you're wrong, I do care, but it doesn't stop with him. However, the thing is, I didn't plant the explosives. I actually needed Simon alive." And Wade tells him, "That is so unlike you to lie." Any last words? Frank doesn't answer, and then he shoots Deadpool in the head. A little while later, Deadpool begins to wake up thinking that he just had the craziest dream. Frank says, "Woke him back to the land of the living. What's the last thing that you remember?" Deadpool says that he was heading to his buddy Banksy's private island in the Hudson River, but it must have been some crazy party, because I don't even remember you being there. Frank hops out of the van, and Deadpool tells him, "Wait, shut the barn door. This is your battle van? I've never been able to ride in it." But a follow-up question, I couldn't help but notice that you have me tied up. Any backstory on that? Frank looks out, telling him, "We had to drive over some rough terrain. I just didn't want you to fall out of your seat and hurt yourself." And Deadpool tells him, "That makes perfect sense. So where is here?" Frank says that this place is the underworld called Terminal, a stretch of nowhere that's not entirely US or Mexico, and who he is tracking sank Simon's wife and son's boat here. So for now, he's going to scout ahead and signal if he needs help. Deadpool tells him, good plan, because when I find out who killed Marina and Hudson, I'm gonna kill them. Deadpool then asks, so can I be untied now? And Frank tells him, no, you might fall asleep again. Deadpool shouts, damn, the logic is flawless! Elsewhere in the compound, Marina gets out of the van and tells Hudson to stay in there with Uncle Radovan. She's going to go take care of some things. Inside, she tells a man that she has the money, and the man hands over fake passports, saying that it's about time that she and her boy get their new looks. Once the transaction is complete, Radovan takes Hudson into the men's room while Marina heads into the women's safe. She looks at the different wigs, and Frank from the corner says that anything looks good on someone who's supposed to be dead. She shouts that she just wants her and her son to be left alone. How did he even find them? And he says that he bugged her when he was at the house, and he figured that her brother Radovan would tip her off before his visit anyway. Radovan then kicks in the door shouting that this is payback, and after getting a shot off, he's shot in the chest with a shotgun. The Dawn of the Dead walks in, handing the shotgun to one of his men and tells Frank, the symbol on your chest, me gusta. The Don then says, here's the thing though, the bank just put out a big bounty on the Punisher's head for killing his wife and kid. You know? As Frank and Marina are led inside, the Don tells them that there's something here that smells a little like no bueno. He was willing to help until he found out that she was getting help from El Deadpool. El Deadpool gave Dawn of the Dead a wedgie in front of his own men, and that is the gravest of insults. Marina shouts, look, she's not with those maniacs. She's trying to get away from them. And the Don tells her, well, we're going to hold you for ransom, but first we need to collect the dinero for killing your murderer. But before the Don can shoot, Deadpool crashes through the ceiling with a speedboat, somehow. As the boat lands on the goons, he pulls out his swords and the Don says, now I will get to my sweet, sweet revenge, and not just for the wedgie, but for defiling the foodstuffs of my people, and always shouting chimichangas. Frank watches as they fight and he hears Deadpool shout, Fluffernutters, El Whopper, Hot Pockets, and asking, what the hell is even happening? The Don stabs Deadpool in the chest and Deadpool says, man, I could really go for some Hot Pockets now. But before the Don can strike again, Frank grabs him by the underpants and he tells Wade to go get Marina and the kid. He'll hold off the others since they trust him. So please be temporarily useful. Deadpool shouts, that is the nicest thing that anyone has ever said to me. And a little while later, Wade is taking Hudson and Marina to the roof where a helicopter is waiting, telling them to go ahead and take these two somewhere before he decides to shoot them. Moments later, Frank runs up asking, what the hell? And Deadpool says that he got Marina and Hudson the hell out of Dodge. And I have no clue where they're going. Great idea, huh, Frank? Though he does have a question. Why did we team up? Also, on the way up, Marina mentions something about meeting in Kentucky. And finally, what's with the duffel bag? Okay, that was like 3 things. Frank shoots Deadpool in the head again, and then he opens up a bag full of Deadpool masks, and he replaces the one that he put a hole in, stating, all right, let's try this again. Later, as Deadpool is sitting in Frank's van, he wakes up stating, are we inside the battle van? Also, something seems to be making holes in the van. You might want to check that out. Frank turns back shouting, yes, it's the battle van. Now shut up or fight. Those are the only 2 options. As the speeding trucks chase the two along the Alps, Frank says that they're in pursuit of Marina Banks and her son Hudson. They're in trouble and Simon thinks that they killed them. Wade shouts, we would never do that. Well, I wouldn't. He then opens up the hatch of the van and jumps onto the speeding trucks, stabbing the driver and moving from one truck to another. All the while, someone watches shouting, yep, knew that was coming. And that too, it's Punisher, he has no video on. Taskmaster, Tony Masters, radios in telling the pursuers that they need to target the van, please. They need to engage Frank directly or he won't be able to get any usable data. Back with the chase, a group of men block the road of Frank and they begin opening fire on the battle van. Frank flips over the Viking funeral switch and sends the van barreling into the group of men and then it explodes. As the two get up, Deadpool asks Frank if he ever wondered what life would be like if he wasn't doing this. And Frank tells him, no, not really. As more men pull up, Deadpool looks up and notices Taskmaster is watching and he says, I'll be right back. The men begin running towards Frank and Frank begins to fight them off, all while Taskmaster is watching, and then he notices Marina and Hudson up ahead of everything. He calls Simon and says, you know, your wife is alive and I'm looking right at her. Simon asks, is he with her, the boy? And Taskmaster asks, what if he is? Simon then says, kill my wife and take the boy. Actually, wait, I don't care what happens to her, just get the boy. Taskmaster then asks, what about the backup files that she stole? And Simon says, yes, recover that if you can, but the most important thing is that you get the boy. Taskmaster thinks on it and then he radios for all teams to abort, stand down and wait for the mission to redirect. Back down on the roads, all of the henchmen stop fighting and they say, whoa, 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 our contract has just been pulled. Frank says, wait, all of you are hired by the same person? And the men say, yeah, but actually, we paid to be here. We're being taught. And now it's time to go. So nothing personal, we're professionals too. Up ahead, Taskmaster holds Hudson by the hand and Marina holds out the flash drive stating that this is what you wanted, right? The backup for every major criminal and crime syndicate? Taskmaster tells her no, he doesn't need that out-of-date backup when he has the source. Hudson looks up at Taskmaster and then he says, Taskmaster, 3 account numbers. UBS Switzerland, Cayman National Bank, plus offshore. I know the maths. Taskmaster says, yep, along with everyone else's too. Marina pulls out a gun and tells Taskmaster to get away, and he says that right now she just needs to walk away from this. He'll bring the boy back when he's done. Marina starts firing her gun, shouting that she will never forgive him for using Hudson's talent for numbers to hide his dealing. Taskmaster holds up his shield, shouting, that is the wrong choice, and this shield is an exact replica of Captain Rogers in every way, except one. As the shield is thrown, it flies by, cutting Marina's head off at the neck. Back at the destroyed vehicles, Deadpool says that he was too late. Marina's dead. And the funny thing is, I just checked my message and I was hired to kill Frank Castle, which means he lied. The contract is only for the Punisher, not both of us, so it's time I collect on that bounty. As Wade pulls out his gun, one of the men from the stands begins shouting, we were letting you go and then you shot us in the back? As the henchman shoots, he hits Wade in the back of the head, and Frank quickly takes out a knife and stabs the henchman. Later, Deadpool begins to wake up and sees that he's now on a cargo ship next to a helicopter that has apparently crashed. So he walks around checking for people, eats some food, and then he notices Hudson sitting in a corner. He walks over asking what's going on, and Hudson tells him to be quiet. He doesn't want anyone to find him. Deadpool asks him who, and Hudson says the Skullmen. They were fighting for a long time. Wade then says that maybe this is the afterlife, and Hudson says no, because then his mommy would be here, and the Skull Man killed him. After thinking about it, Wade says, wait, which Skull Man? Hudson says that they ran from the skull chest, and then the skull head found him, and he just wishes that they were all dead. Wade gets up and says that can be arranged. Just wait here. Meanwhile, over at Simon's private bank in the middle of the ocean, he steps off of his helicopter and the guards ask if he's here for an inspection. Simon tells them no. Taskmaster sees control of the receptacle for all of their account numbers, including access to the offshore vault. One of the guards asks if he would like a sidearm, and Simon tells him no. He's gonna leave the gun thuggery to them. The guard says very well. They are the very best, and remember who trained them. And then all the guards point their guns at Simon. Back on the ship, Frank and Taskmaster begin to fight, and as the two exchange blows, Taskmaster says, you know, I'm not really one for guns. In fact, mine's only for show. It's a high-powered air gun, good for delivering poison and pellets. Frank punches back, stating, to each their own. And as Taskmaster begins to gain the upper hand, Deadpool jumps from the control tower, calling out Taskmaster. Taskmaster blocks the hit and tells Deadpool that he better be careful. Deadpool asks him why is he using his super memory bupkis on him, because he's gonna go crazy for him. Taskmaster grabs Wade's sword from his hand and twists it back, stabbing Wade in the back, telling him, I wouldn't bother. Frank's fighting has served me well enough. If you're going to steal a fighting style from someone because that's your power, you steal from the best. Taskmaster then hears Frank's voice stating, flattering. And together, him and Deadpool begin to beat on Taskmaster. With one final kick, the two send Taskmaster over the edge of the ship. But Taskmaster manages to grab onto the ladder before falling into the ocean. As he begins to climb back up, Taskmaster sees Hudson standing with his shield. And he tells him, don't. Hudson takes the sharp end of the shield and slams it into the rope ladder, causing Taskmaster to fall. And as he falls, he tells him, well played, kid, well played! Back up top, Deadpool says that he feels like something's missing, like he keeps waking up from this crazy dream. And as he begins to explain it, Frank finishes it telling him, yeah, I know, I've heard it before. And then Wade stops and thinks, and he reaches down grabbing Taskmaster's gun. Deadpool tells him, hey Frank! Frank turns around, with Deadpool shooting him in the head and shouting, you've been shooting me in the head over and over to erase my memory, haven't you? As the night begins to fall, Frank wakes up to see that he's not dead. He moves on to the offshore vault, and as he moves, he sees all of the guards already dead. Turns a corner to see Deadpool, Simon, and Hudson, and Deadpool yells, wakey wakey! In case you're wondering, I knew Taskmaster only carried a pea shooter gun, which is why I was able to shoot you in the head. The force of the pellet would just flatten out on your skull and shoot out of the back of your head, making it look like a real shot. So I rescued the Banks kid from Tasky, brought him back to his dad, and too bad we couldn't save his mother. At least we were able to do this though. Frank says this man is the world's most successful money launderer and loan shark. This vault contains half of the wealth of every major criminal and terrorist organization. This man has stored up all of his account numbers in his own son's head. He's like a living flash drive. Frank then holds up his gun and Deadpool holds out his, stating, look, just let the kid have his dad. Hudson doesn't deserve this. He doesn't deserve to turn out like us. Frank pulls the trigger, but the gun only clicks, and Deadpool laughs. Do you really think that I wouldn't take the bullets out of your clip? How dumb do you think I am? Deadpool then pulls his trigger, and it only clicks, and Wade shouts, oh, come on, bad gun! The two start scrambling for guns, which all apparently have no bullets in them. However, Frank finds one with bullets and begins shooting into Wade. As the two struggle, Simon opens up the vault door and the two fall into the underground vault. And even after the fall from the height, the two go right back to fighting each other. As Deadpool knocks Frank down, Frank grabs the loaded gun and begins shooting into Wade's knees. Wade falls over, telling him it's only a temporary setback, and he starts to crawl off. Frank then gets back up and aims where Wade ran off to, and then a giant stone wheel rolls out. Frank asks, "What the hell is that?" And Wade jumps out from behind it, throwing a bag of money at Frank's face. Frank stumbles down another staircase, and Wade throws his sword into Frank's hand, and he jumps down, landing on Frank's chest. Back up top, Simon grabs a lever, stating that this is their last chance to kill them both. Down below, Wade pulls out his sword and he gets ready to stab Frank when Frank mutters, "You mother!" And Wade stops and says, "Wait, did you say Martha? Your mother's name is Martha? Oh man, that changes everything. People's mothers who have the same name shouldn't fight." As Wade rolls off, Frank asks, "Are you doing a bit? Or are you serious? Or do you even know?" Frank rolls over, stating, "My mother's name is Louise." And Wade gets back up, telling him, "Well, you then." But before he can fire, Hudson shouts at him to look out, and suddenly a shelf of gold bars comes crashing down. A few seconds later, Simon hides behind Hudson, telling him, "We can talk about this." And without saying anything, both Frank and Wade shoot Simon in the face. Wade tosses his gun, stating, "Well, that's that." And then he kneels down next to Hudson. He tells him, "Look, having a father horribly butchered in front of you is going to be really scarring. Just think about the people who grew up without a father and how they turned out great. Barack Obama, Harry Potter, Spider-Man, Ronald McDonald, Spider-Man!" Frank leans back into the wall, telling them, "Now we just need to put the self-destruct code in, and I just need to close my eyes for a second." Wade tells him, "Cool, just don't die. Monthly revenue depends on you." As Wade and Hudson walk out of the vault, Hudson says that when he grows up, he's going to become a supervillain. And Wade says, "After all this trauma? Of course you are. But I do have one question. Where the heck are we?" And there you have it, a fight that we all wanted, but no one really knew that we did. Deadpool versus the Punisher. Now, don't forget to check out the video right here if you want to get more Deadpool. This video over here is going to bring you to our Punisher playlist, and let me know in the comments down below if you would like more Punisher. I did a few of them, but you guys seem to have lost interest, but with the show coming out, maybe you will like more. Anyway, I'll see you later. I have to go find Fatpool. No one will ever know that I'm secretly Fatpool.